What's going on, guys? Vital Syntax here, and you've probably heard of Star Citizen. It's the biggest crowdfunding game to date, and they just reached $14 million in funding and backing to this upcoming title. So in this video, I wanted to talk about some of the information we know about the game and also show you guys some gameplay and concept art and screenshots from the game that I thought were pretty awesome. First of all, I wanted to get the release dates out of the way because everybody wants to know when the game's going to be available and when you'll be able to play it. So they have an estimated release date for the actual game, which is going to be November 2014. And they also have an estimated release date for the alpha, which is going to be sometime in December of 2013 this year. And that's for the alpha. And the beta will probably be sometime in the middle of 2014 before the full release of the game. Now, if you want to get access to the alpha of the game as well as pre-purchase the game, the full release, you can head over to the link in the description, which is at robertspaceindustries.com, and you can pledge to purchase the game, and it'll also be at a discounted price than if you were to buy it later on down the line when it's actually for full retail. So the game is a single player and multiplayer space simulator, and it's going to be one of the most graphically demanding games that we've seen in a long time. It runs on CryEngine 3, the same graphics engine that powered Crysis 3, and it's honestly one of the best game engines as far as graphics go and as far as physics go. Now, this is a PC exclusive game. I don't think they've talked anything about next-gen consoles either. I guess that is always a possibility. But I wanted to talk about some of the single-player and multiplayer components of the game and how it's actually going to work in the actual gameplay of the game. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the crowdfunding goals that have been reached. So, like I said earlier, they just reached $14 million in funding, and that's going to add new features to the game that are going to be available because they reached that point. So the first one is that they're going to add this hibernation feature, which will allow pilots to power down their starships in a deep space area to essentially leave the game risk-free in a multiplayer type of environment. As well as they're going to be producing a behind-the-scenes documentary of the making of Star Citizen, the game, which is pretty cool. Now, if the game reaches $15 million in crowdfunding, they're going to add a couple new features, including a new escort carrier ship, as well as a lengthy handbook that's going to detail a bunch of customization and features that are in the game about all the different starships, all the different types of upgrades and stuff that you can get for different ships in the game. And if the game reaches $16 million in crowdfunding, they're going to add, or they're guaranteeing that they'll add. These are things that they might add, but if they reach these goals, they're going to guarantee that they'll produce these. But if it hits 16 million, they're going to produce a PvP arena mode for combat training and playing against other players in a controlled environment, as well as a laser pistol sidearm for supporters of the project. So now let's talk about the single player, which is going to be called Squadron 42, as well as the multiplayer component, which is Star Citizen. So you can play this game by yourself in a offline single player game, and that's going to be called Squadron 42. It's going to involve you joining the intergalactic military and doing missions and completing a storyline that has characters and a persistent world. And you can do that by yourself, and when you're done, if you want to do that, you can jump into the multiplayer. And the way the multiplayer works is quite cool. It's a mix of a single player / co-op and multiplayer, and I think this is where a lot of future games are moving towards, where it's a more of the dynamic multiplayer instead of you have a server browser and you join servers and you play with people in those servers. Instead, they're doing what's called like a dynamic instance of the universe. So you could be playing by yourself in an area, let's say around some type of planet, and you can choose what type of multiplayer options you want. If you want to focus on PvP, if you want to focus on player versus environment, if you have friends on your squad mates list, it will automatically and dynamically add people into your match and into the server that you're playing in, and automatically you can play with your friends, they can join you, or you can automatically have other people that are playing the game be seamlessly integrated into the instance of the universe that you're playing, so that at any given time you're not necessarily playing with 1,000 people or a couple thousand people in the same server and they're all crowded around this one area. Instead, it'll dynamically scale so that there's other people around you at almost all times. If you choose to have that option, you can also choose to just play with you and your friends and not have any other people around that are a threat. But if you choose to, it'll dynamically bring in other people around you in a way that makes it so the world's always filled with people and there's always player versus player interactions, but also so it's not crowded and so that it's not overpopulated in certain areas, which I think is like basically a perfect way of doing it. Now, they also talked about the ability to run your own servers and also mod support, which I think is pretty cool. So later on down the line, if you're worried about maybe them not being able to provide server support because they're not getting enough funding to run the servers, there will be the option for people to run their own servers if they want to play 10 years down the line and the game's not that popular anymore, as well as the option for mods that will hopefully extend the lifetime of the game and maybe add some really cool new features. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the economy, which is completely dynamic and user controlled. So effectively, there's a currency system, there's a trading system, and there's a whole economy that's based on player actions. So for example, you could have a missile factory that requires metal, it requires explosive and electronics to operate and produce missiles. And those missiles are going to be purchased by players as well as AI in the universe to resupply their ships and resupply their different starships and stuff to go around the world and use as weapons. Now, if the supply chain to that missile factory gets cut off, let's say the supply gets taken by a group of pirates, then the price of missiles is going to go up because the factory can't produce missiles. They're not getting the supplies to do so, so those missiles therefore to become more expensive because the demand for them is slightly higher and the supply is slightly lower. Now, there's also going to be missions that are dynamically generated. Let's say a mission is generated to escort these supplies to that factory because it keeps getting attacked by pirates. If you're a mercenary, you can take that mission and go ahead and try and protect it from bandits or from pirates. So there are three essential kind of choices you have in the game of how you're going to play the game. You can either be a pirate, you can be a merchant, or a mercenary, and depending on which option you choose and which way you want to play the game, it will give you different types of missions. For example, trading different goods, or protecting different goods, or stealing different goods. It's not necessarily just supplies and stuff. It's also the supply of ships, the creation of ships that are being produced by factories on different planets in different solar systems, orbiting different stars. So there's a completely dynamic and user-controlled economy that is going to have a huge impact on the players and also will be immensely impacted by the players themselves. And I thought it was really, really cool. So that's some of the overview and information about Star Citizen, the gameplay, some of the options you have for roles in the game, as well as some of the crowdfunding and economy systems. They have a ton of ships in the game. There's tons of customization you can do, upgrading weapons, buying different types of ships, buying different types of hangars. There's you can have a bunch of ships that are produced in a hangar. You can upgrade them individually, select which one you want to run around with, and it's also completely dynamic in those hangars. You can actually walk around as an individual in first or third person as a character. It's not just you controlling a ship. There's actually like a third/first person role-playing type of environment that you can explore. If you dock onto a space station or if you dock onto a planet, you can actually get out and go explore that area. And some of those areas that you dock at will have bars that you can go in and talk to other merchants or talk to other mercenaries or other pirates. And you can get different missions, get different information about the backstory and the lore of the world around you. Obviously, with the single player, there's more of an objective, there's more of a mission-based, character-driven storyline that will have huge events and things like that. But in the multiplayer side, all that stuff is created by users. Those missions, those events and wars will be dynamically created by actual people. Kind of like how you think EVE Online plays out. I mean, EVE Online's more of a MMO game than this is. This is more focused on the simulation of first and third person combat, and EVE has more of that lock-on based cooldown combat, whereas this is more about controlling your ship, doing different upgrades, and actually controlling, you know, the accuracy and aiming of where you're shooting at, which I think was going to be really, really cool for at least the combat. So anyway, I strongly recommend that you guys check out the game. And if you're on the PC, this is going to be a game that you either want to upgrade your PC for, or you want to buy a PC. And this is going to require a fairly high-end PC, actually a very high-end PC if you want to run the game at some of the higher settings. And I think this will be one of those games where there's a huge boom in the number of PC gamers and the number of PC sales for hardware. I remember right back with Battlefield 3, there was a ton of people going out and buying new PCs, including myself. That's the reason I built a PC was for Battlefield 3. There was a ton of hardware sales for new graphics cards and CPUs and other peripherals and things like that, where people were upgrading specifically for that game. And it seems like Star Citizen is going to be another one of those huge games that really pushes the PC hardware to the next level. I think also things like Oculus Rift having virtual reality and joysticks and things like that is also going to be probably integrated fairly well into the game to allow for a fully immersed space simulation shooter. So anyway, I'm extremely excited for this game. This is easily in my top 10 of upcoming games for the PC platform. And I've already backed the project. I think I put in $30 or $40 to back the project. And if you do, you're going to get alpha access to the game, so you can play it as early as sometime in December of 2013 this year. And you'll, of course, get full access to the game once it's released, hopefully in November of 2014. So you definitely want to check out this website, check out the game, and if you're interested in playing it, pledge to the game, give them some more money to back the project, because they're not going through a major publisher, they're not going through EA, they're not going through Activision. They're relying on the actual excitement and the funding of people that want to play this game, instead of having this marketing team that's going to push them and make them design the game the way that, you know, the company that's publishing the game might want to make it. Instead, if they do crowdfunding, they can actually make the game that they want to make, and the game they want to make is fucking awesome. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like or a favorite, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.